Il est un peu froid, mais ça va.
Oh oui, c'est normal. And Brian, we get to see Brian, or hear Brian. What is the B for? Just the B. Who is that? Don't know.
Yeah, sorry about each time. Rumi and I, we try to practice French. So
we're all about languages, this group.
So I know it's a minute past, but I think we'll wait. We're missing quite a few people. And I know a lot of people jumped on a minute or two after.
I just spoke with Bill, and I think he's figuring out how to storm the battalion here.
All right, yeah, it looks like everyone's jumping in now.
So there were two links on the email with the attachment for today, and I clicked on the older one, I guess, and that took me nowhere, and then I clicked on the one closest to the top.
All right, well, good. It looks like people are in now. So I think we get started in the interest of time. I know we have a lot to discuss. And so let's go through introductions. There are a few people that have not been on the meetings previously. So really it's just say your name and affiliation. We can run through these in a minute or two. So I'll start out by just saying that this meeting is recorded, and so we can find this after, and I'll post this to the project website. And so my name is Brett Husong. I'm the project manager, and I've been working on this project for the last 3 years. So Ellen Stewart, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, I'm Ellen Stewart. I am a senior landscape architect, work in the same division with Brett, design and construction, and I'm here just to try to keep an eye on things and keep things moving for Brett.
Thanks, Ellen. Brian.
Yes, I'm Brian Hammer. I'm affiliated with the Friendship Garden. I'm on the board.
Thanks, Brian. How are you?
Sorry, I said I have introduced myself before. So my name is Haoyu Zhao. I am a landscape designer. I graduated from Harvard Graduate School of Design in the year of 2020, and I'm with the Chinese Advisory Committee now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ji Jun.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ji Jun He. I'm a member of the advisory team of the China Garden from Chinese community.
Thank you, Kali.
Hi. I'm Kyle Lee. I'm a visual and public artist.
Thank you, Commissioner Kang.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chua Kang. I sit on the Parks and Recs Commission.
Great. Thanks for coming. Let's see. Next is Linda.
Hello, I'm Linda Mealy Lohman, and I am the co-founder of the China Garden Society and the past president for 15 years, and glad to be a part of this.
Thank you. Ping Wang.
Hi, this is Ping Wang. I'm the member of Chinese Advisory Group.
Thank you. Romy.
Yeah. Recovering urban planner, community arts activist, Lake Phelan resident, and member of the board, because I love the idea of a China garden with two cultures working together.
Thank you, Sue.
Sue Clavin, a neighbor of the garden.
Councilmember Tao.
Dai Tao, council member Ward 1. Thanks everybody for being here tonight.
Bill Zajac.
Yeah, Bill Zajac, president of the Minnesota China Friendship Garden Society.
Thank you, Bill. Chris Zhang.
Hello, everyone. Chris Zhang here. Pronouns are he, him, his. I am the legislative aide to Councilmember Nelsie Yang of Ward 6, Eastside St. Paul.
Thank you, Ying.
Ying Zhang He, Hmong Advisory Committee Chair, and also member of the Hmong Design Advisory Committee.
Thank you. And then Carolyn.
Caroline Xiao Van, longtime on the advisory board of the Minnesota China Friendship Garden Society and a member of the design committee.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. Is there anyone I missed? All right. We got through that much faster than last time. Thank you, everyone. So this is the third Design Advisory Committee meeting that we are attending within, I think, the last month. And so thank you for attending. I know this is a lot of meetings right in a row, but I think we're progressing through a lot of topics, a lot of elements in the garden. So I'm going to go through again quickly what the role is for the advisory committee, our process, the project background for those that have not been on this, and then we'll talk about the donor wall and the moon bridge, and we'll go through site analysis, some project design examples, and then similar to the Hmong Plaza, we'll go through programming questions. So then we'll have time for discussion. Please keep yourself on mute when not talking if possible. If you have any questions, please use the chat. Ellen is here to help field any questions, or you can raise your hand and she can notify me. And once again, this meeting is recorded and the content will be attached to the project website, and I'll show that at the end. All right, so we are at the third meeting here in the winter. We'll have a fourth one probably in a month once we analyze some of the discussion that we've had. Ultimately, we want to go through construction documents this spring with bidding to happen late spring, and then begin construction on the Hmong Plaza and the Pavilion landscape. And so your role today is to be an advisory role to Parks, where you'll provide input, you representing the larger community, and the decisions will be by consensus, not voting. And we'll try to work respectfully, balance the needs of others, or understand the needs of others. And we'll attend at least 6 of these meetings, not including any public meetings. And your role is to help guide the design and layout of the elements of the Hmong Plaza, the donor wall, the pavilion landscape, the moon bridge. And we're looking at patterns, forms, spaces, locations based upon the master plan that was completed in 2017. And we'll take that information and present that to the community. And so once again, as we are going through projects, this is very similar to any project. Parks and Recreation is balancing the needs of our system. And we're looking at the site context. We're looking at the budget, funding availability, operations and maintenance, because we are taking on the long-term maintenance of any improvements to Phelan Regional Park. And then we have other permitting like the DNR, the Watershed District, and then the community input. And so we're showing the garden location, which is on the north side of Lake Phelan. It's on the north side of the Phelan Channel. And this is what we are, here's a blow up of the China Garden itself. And so in black, you can see phase 1, which is the Western Archway, and the pavilion, which was installed the last couple of years. We are discussing in these 3 meetings, the Hmong Plaza, this is the pavilion landscape, this is the donor wall area, and this is the moon bridge. And so funding is from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, legacy funding, and then state bonding. And so the purpose of this meeting today is similar to the Hmong Plaza. We want to review the location of the donor wall and the moon bridge. So we're going to look at form, function, we're going to look at materials and other characteristics, symbols, cultural aspects. And so we'll take this information. We're not going into deep design details. We will take the information that you are recommending, and we will take that to our artists, city landscape architects, and our project engineers for review and design. And we'll come back with any revisions to the master plan. And so quickly, I want to recap what we heard from the second meeting, which was a week ago. And that was about the Hmong Plaza. And so we heard the purpose of the Hmong Plaza is to celebrate, educate, meditation, and other recreational aspects. It should be a cultural bridge to strengthen friendships, display Hmong art heritage, contribute to City of St. Paul, and it should be designed for peace and tranquility. And so what we also heard is that it's too late to move the plaza because of feng shui, blessing, and site dedication. An alternate location would be outside of the garden. It would not promote friendship. We also heard that the current location would not support a 200-person plaza, and an alternate site was recommended. And a 200-person plaza would not be in harmony with an intimate garden. So I just want to recap that quickly. We have no decisions have been made. But I will say that we're guiding the discussion, and we're trying to promote a transparent process. And so we're going to reach out to the design team, which is internally with the city, with the artists, and the Shengsha designers in China. And we will schedule another meeting in the near future to continue that discussion. One thing that I do want to point out, I think there was one question about the square footage, and I have that in the project notes that was uploaded to the project website. The square footage of the Chinese elements, I believe, was I think around 5,200 square feet, and the Hmong square footage was around, I think, 42. Those are rough estimates. I have the exact numbers, but I know that was one of the questions. So I just wanted to recap that. We are moving forward today, and we're going to talk about the donor wall and the moon bridge. So this is a bird's eye view to the north of the master plan in 2017. This is showing the western gateway that is constructed. Here is the pavilion. We are on the east side of the site looking at the donor wall, which is connected to the eastern entrance, and then the moon bridge, which is crossing the channel. So these are the two items we will discuss as part of our meeting today. So currently, the existing site where we are proposing the donor wall from the 2017 master plan is an image here where it's at the corner of the main pathway that goes around Phelan, and then this is the pathway that goes in front of the wall or the pavilion. I'm showing a rough outline of where the wall would be placed. Currently, there are some younger maples and some generational species of oaks that are in the back. There's also picnic tables. Here's another view behind me of the current existing donor wall. And then this is on the bottom a view from these picnic tables looking back towards the pavilion. So it's really used as a passive grilling and resting area at this time. Looking closer, so walking further to the south, this is the existing site of the moon bridge. It is beyond the picnic table, and this is the rough area where the moon bridge would be located to cross the channel. And I wanted to go through a little bit of site analysis similar to the Hmong Plaza to show really the site layout from a plan view of the wall and moon bridge. And so to orientate yourself, this is the pavilion here just off the stream. And the two lines here are showing the path that is going around the lake. So here is a key map of the location. We are just on the southeast side of the China Gardens site. And so you can see this is where the bridge is going across, and here's the proposed bridge. So these are the maple trees we were looking at, and then back along where the slope goes down to the channel is where some of the generational oaks exist. And so up on top here is where I will call the upper part of the bluff. It's the upland portion where it is drier. There's more prairie grass. And then down below, you can see the contours as it gets, there's a steeper slope as it goes down to the channel. And so this marker here shows A. This is the view of the proposed 2017 donor wall. This is roughly the position of where we are standing in this image. And so you'll notice that there is a plaza or a walkway, probably 10 to 12 feet, that arcs along and connects the path in front of the pavilion and connects also to the path that goes around the lake. And so the proposed donor wall in this image is roughly between 80 to 100 feet. And that is shown in the bolder black line. And so there's also one thing that I want to show, and the idea is of a moon gate. And so that is shown right here. The moon gate is roughly 2/3 of the way or halfway through the donor wall. And so the view of that moon gate is towards the proposed moon bridge. So it is framing the view to the bridge, and it is not off on the side where there is a path. It is off. It is not the actual entrance. The entrance in front of the pavilion is further to the north. And so what is proposed in the 2017 plan are a series of stairs that go out after that follow the moon bridge down to the channel where you can access the bridge. There is the moon bridge, I should say. There's also an ADA path that is further around to the southeast that can get you down at a 5% grade to the proposed bridge. in the 2017 master plan, that same path down along the channel does go around and connect to future improvements such as the lakeside pavilion.
Couple questions, Brett.
Yes.
I'm going. First of all, Councilmember Tao is wondering if the height of the donor wall is gonna block beautiful view overlooking the bridge and the island.
Yes, that there is a possibility that the wall is tall enough. And so we'll go into a few different concepts here shortly where we can look at different options where you can see towards the picnic island. Was there anything else?
The only other thing I was going to ask is, I'm no longer echoing, that's good, was whether people can see your cursor as you're pointing towards things on the plans, because it's, okay. I just want to make sure.
I guess sometimes it does have a hand, but then it does go to a crosshair.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right, I will
just checking.
If you can make it bigger, it would be helpful, but that may be a learning curve.
Make the cursor bigger or make the actual slides bigger?
No, make the cursor bigger. I know in some programs that you can do it, but I'm not sure how you do it in this.
I think we're limited with Teams, unfortunately.
I think I will keep it moving where I can have a larger hand on it.
Okay, great.
So thank you, Ellen and Councilmember Tao. That is a good transition to the concepts based upon the 2017 master plan. So the first image that I was showing in that rendering is concept A. So this is the moon gate with a continuous wall. So this is showing the 85 plus foot wall that spans, that would arc all the way around. So you can see, if you can see my cursor all the way back in the corner, and it comes around to where the path meets the front of the pavilion. And this is the image to the left, zooms in to the moon gate. And this is the image of the moon gate looking through towards the moon bridge down below. Granted, you cannot see that at this point, but this is the design. And one thing I will point out while we're looking at this, it has stucco walls and it has tile along the top of it, which relates to the pavilion roof, tile roof. And you can see in this image, there are black granite donor wall panels with white lettering. I believe that this is around a 10 to 12 foot path, so there's enough room for people in strollers, families, or multiple groups to pass each other as they're looking at the names. A second concept that was developed in 2017 provides a little bit more transparency, like Councilmember Tao was talking about, where we still have a moon gate, but we do not have that continuous wall all the way back to the pavilion walkway. And what this is a concept of the stucco wall, and it also has some wooden panels that could be added later, but this is similar to what is currently out there, or a similar design to the existing donor wall. A third option, and we do not have one in a rendered view, but we do have it from an aerial perspective, is a smaller wall that is probably the most transparent if there's issues with security or wanting to see the views or see more of Picnic Island. Is a smaller wall, and it's similar with a 10 to 12 foot path, but I believe you still get to see through where you have less obstruction by a larger wall or a stucco wall. One thing I do want to point out is in all concepts there is an East Gate sign, which is a larger boulder that says China Friendship Garden. It could be written in several different languages, all three, Hmong, Chinese, and English if we wanted to. But this is an image or an idea from 2017, and it is set within an island. So it's bounded by the main path that goes around Lake Phelan, and then really the walkway in front of the donor wall. That's examples of the donor wall. I wanted to show you examples of the Moon Bridge. The first example here is from 2017 master plan. So this is a rendering that has a relatively large uphill archway, and the idea is it has this arched or an arch that you could go under if you had a kayak, I guess, but it also does provide this reflection in the water. So this is what was shown in the master plan, but I do also want to show other options that are fairly typical. This does not have stairs. Another option, which is not as high, it could be taller, but it does have stairs. What that does is it does limit anyone in a wheelchair, families with strollers, people in walkers to get across that bridge. Another option is more of an ADA accessible bridge where it does not go up as high, but you can still have an arch underneath to provide that reflection. And I think there's probably other creative ways or design ways to make it look like there is more of an arch when there really isn't. But the idea is it would be ADA accessible to get people across. And then another one that I wanted to show is a bridge with whiter stone. So we do have a lighter granite with the posts of the pavilion and also on the gateway, on the western gateway. So if we wanted to have more of a bold bridge or a bridge that was made out of stone that relates to similar colors that we already have, that is an option. But I also want us to begin thinking about how do we want this to fit into the landscape, and thinking about should it be more of a duller color that fits within the context of the native grasses that are surrounding the pavilion. So as we go through our discussions tonight, this really just kicks off questions that you may be thinking about. But the purpose of the design for the donor wall from the 2017 plan is to have a permanent donor list, and it has a secondary gate, which is the Moon Gate, into the garden from the east. So it is not the Moon Gate would not be the main gateway or entrance into the garden. It's got the tile-like pavilion that I pointed out, similar to the tile-like roof, similar to the pavilion. The Moon Gate frames the bridge, and then the stucco walls with the names engraved in white on the black granite donor panels. I will say that I have received a few comments. I think some of you or most of you were included on that discussion, but there was a question about the black granite being heavy, so possibly using a white granite with red lettering. So the design questions, and this was already brought up by Councilmember Tao. Do we prefer a continuous wall? Should it be a little more transparent, or a combination of both of those? Do we have the desire, and how can we incorporate this as a friendship garden to incorporate other among symbols? And do we want to incorporate any interpretive garden information? So that could be the history of the garden. It could be analysis of maybe the language and the art stones that were installed, or discussing what are some of the background to the elements, such as the Western Gateway. So that's for the donor wall. The Moon Bridge, it's really a poetic landscape element, provides connections to Picnic Island, so it's got that functional purpose. Underneath, it would frame a view towards the meditation sculpture. But we also want to be cognizant about, do we want this to be ADA accessible? What are some of the features on the bridge itself, on the side of the facade, and how do we incorporate any monk symbols on that bridge? What are the colors, materials? Should it stand out, or should it blend in with the landscape? So that's all I wanted to present at this point. I think I'd like to open it up, starting probably with the donor wall. I think let's start with one and go through that, and then we can go into the bridge. But I realize both of these do connect to each other.
Linda has her hand up.
Yes.
I thought it might be helpful to give a little perspective, the historical perspective about how at least the first two, A and B, came about. So with A, originally we were thinking of a solid wall, and if you can see on the left-hand side of this wall, there are separations in the wall so that there's space between that. And I don't know if you have a better picture to show that or not. But the concern was that maybe it was a safety issue if we had just one big solid wall, that nefarious activities could happen on the other side. And if we broke that wall up a little bit, that would reduce that possibility. Although breaking up a wall like that is not standard in China Gardens. So I just want to give that explanation. Also, there was concern about, once we saw it, that the part on the left looks like funeral steles, something that you might see in more like in a graveyard. So that's something to keep in mind. And B came about because we thought we had enough money to do this entrance, and we were looking, and we had a certain pot of money that we thought we could do this in 2019. And so we wanted to know what was the maximum we could use with this limited pot of money. And so B was a much more lower cost option to just pick up on the donor stanchion that's already there. But then as it turned out, there were overruns on the garden, and that money went for other construction things. So we didn't have the money for this after all. But this was to accommodate that point in time when we thought we had $100,000 and we could do the entrance. So I'll have some historical perspective on the Moon Bridge too when we get to that.
Okay, thank you, Linda. One thing I want to point out is, so on my cursor here, I'm highlighting these areas where the wall is separated or broken up. Is this is what you're talking about, where it looks like more of a monument feature?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and this scenario in B is also shown. It's difficult to see, but it is similar in concept A, over on this left side on the smaller image.
I also wanted to say one other thing in response to Councilmember Tao's comment about would it block the view. So one of the key features of China Gardens is that you have this, what they call hide and reveal, whereas you don't show everything all at once. You walk your guests through it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's something new. And then you turn a corner and, oh, there's something new. So the point of the wall would be purposefully to create a space that would embrace that aesthetic principle of China Gardens. And it would frame, the archway would frame the Moon Bridge. So I just wanted to share that perspective too.
Great, thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tao.
Thanks, Brad. I'm just curious, would it be like in these type of garden, would it be in harmony if the donor wall is on the east side of the path, with its back facing the lake, so that it doesn't distort the view? What would that look like?
Yeah, that is a great question that has come up by others, where they have suggested that the donor wall should be on both sides. But I have not heard that, where it is only on the west side of the wall.
Wait, is that what he said? I thought he meant move the whole donor wall closer to the lake.
I
understood. Could you clarify that?
Yeah, so it will be on the east of the path.
So are you talking about, on my cursor right here, I'm showing the edge of the path and the grass. Would you suggest that it moves just on the east side of this path?
No, the other path, the regular path that folks walk on right now.
Okay, so this path over here.
Yeah.
So the donor wall would be on this side. Okay.
I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas
Yeah.
out there to
I think
keep that view.
that's a great suggestion. I think it's still within the view of the China Garden. I think the only issue sometimes is the movement of people on that main path.
There may also be some Chinese garden aesthetic principles, because usually the wall is to create a smaller courtyard area, and that's what she's designed here. And I wish Carol Brash were here because she could explain it better.
Carol is on. Yes.
Yep, I'm here. Yes, and so the wall would normally enclose an entire four-sided space. And in fact, within a traditional classical garden, you would have multiple sort of these little, I guess, miniature gardens with the walls around them and various kinds of pathways between them. And sometimes being able to see through one to another, and that takes a smaller space and makes it seem much larger. And so with this plan, we would only have one of the four sides. And so, conceptually, the idea is also that you are going with the moon gate anyways, that you would be passing from one sort of outside world into a different world. And that there's symbolic meaning to that passing through the gate, and being sort of conscious of the change that you're going through as you pass through it. And so I do worry that we lose some of that with only having one wall. And anyway, that is a concern that I have. There's also the idea of the play of shadow on the wall, and that the plants, if you've ever seen ink painting, right? So the idea of having the white solid wall, in part on the inside, is to have plants that would be in front of that create shadows that move throughout the day and create sort of moving paintings on the white wall. And so, I worry about having too much stuff on the wall as well.
Thank you, Carol. Can you speak to anything about putting the wall on the east side of the path?
If nobody, if I'm understanding right, so that there would be only the lake on the other side of the path, is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
So that there's no opportunity for people to sort of pass by the wall and have something outside and then pass through, the transition liminal area into the new space. Then yeah, that would not meet the concept entirely.
Okay.
Yeah, so there would need to be some way that people can be sort of outside and then be inside, to really fully get that piece of the concept in.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Romy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do like the idea of a classical style China wall, creating a sense of entrance. That image, though, in the lower left that shows that long straight piece, I just wanted to encourage our designers, how you and maybe even Jennifer, to and get even Carol's opinion on whether maybe that wall could be undulating both vertically into the ground, and also maybe that the top of it could undulate, for instance, like the Yuyuan in Shanghai. I mean, it seems very rigid to me, and that's all I wanted to say.
Great.
Yeah, Brett, this is Ying. I use my cell phone, then I don't have the access to raise my hand, but I like to comment about the donut wall. I have two ideas. The first one is just a piece of granite a big piece of granite and writing in both sides. And the location, I think that the location, the temporary donor wall location is a good location because that is the most traffic jam because people go from the garden to there and from around the lake, and the people, the two group people come there. So I think that is the best location, the temporary now. And then I also want to know that what how the donor will be included in this war donor, because couple category on the donor. And then I also want to suggest that the official, the elected official people also support this China Friendship Garden, and they also contribute some funding to this. And I like to suggest that we have a second wall for those special people, and also include the City of St. Paul Partner and Recreation Department and the Minnesota China Friendship Garden Society, and also the Tumong and Chinese Advisory Committee, all those in one wall. But the other donor, individual donor will be in the bigger wall, and there are two walls. Or if we have a one wall, so both sides, one side for the official, the board, and then the partner recreation, the advisory, one side, and the other side for the donor. So that is my idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Yang. Can I follow up with a question? So are you suggesting that the wall should not be located here, but it should be, this is where the existing donor wall is? Are you saying it should be over closer to this pathway?
Yeah, I think that my suggestion is the temporary donor wall. That is the best location for people come over everywhere and they join there. They see the wall, so they will enjoy to read the wall, read the take picture on the wall.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments about the donor wall? Materials, symbols?
We haven't talked at all about the landscaping around it, but to Carol Brash's point, on the left side of that wall, there could be lovely trees and shrubs. No, go back to where you were. Yeah, no, that one. Sorry, on the left side there. Yep. Of the one with the dotted line, that could create sort of a continuous wall of shrubbery and vegetation to give it more of an enclosed feeling, not just a wall stuck in the middle of that space.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
thanks.
she's responding to another concern that I had about it not being enclosed, right, and wanting to corner it and maybe have something that gives the illusion of it continuing. And then I'm going to put this in there. I know it's not an option, but of course, donor walls are not part of traditional Chinese gardens. They are a part of American Chinese gardens, but the ones that I'm aware of, they typically occur near the front entry to the garden. And so I'm just putting that out there.
So Carol, could you expand on that a little bit? Do you mean we would have this moon gate entrance and just use the shadow of plants against it to decorate it, and then at a separate location have something that has the donors on it? Carol?
I just admitted Carol back in. Carol, did you hear that question from Linda? She's
sorry.
asked-
I was trying to mute myself and I overshot and hit the wrong button.
That's all right. Linda, do you want to ask that again?
Sure. I just wanted to clarify what you just said. Are you saying that this donor wall or this, let's call it the Moon Gate entrance, would be freestanding and just have vegetation, you know, to shadow play on it, and then have a separate donor wall with the engraved names in a separate location that's set apart from this?
That's more typical of other gardens. I'm not saying that that's what we have to do. I know that that's something you guys have asked me about in the past, is sort of, because I have been to a lot of these places. That would be more typical. And I would hope that we would keep at least one side of the wall open for that shadow play to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So what I'm hearing is it could be split typically in a Chinese garden. It seems like that would be similar to what Ying was suggesting. So those are the type of things that we'll take note of. It sounds like that would help with the transparency and follow some of those design principles. Carolyn, do you have a comment?
Yes. Okay. I wanted to comment also, just, you know, sort of inspired by what Carol was saying and, you know, what everyone, you know, Ying and everybody were saying about this, the location and the shape. And I just didn't know. I mean, maybe this is a question for Carol. I don't know. I mean, are you saying because normally there's more of an enclosed shape, that there should be a like a space, and you know, a space that one feels on one side, or is one wall okay? And then, so that was kind of one question. Another comment was that, I mean, in light of the most important desire for harmony and beauty from this garden, and I think that, to me, less important is perhaps, you know, noting who happened to give money here and there and this and that. I mean, everybody knows, you know, from websites and other information, we're going to have that available to people, and we'll hopefully even have fancy little things like the QR codes where you can just, you know, come up to something and see, well, these stones mean such and such, and, you know, the wall, you know, came from so and so, and all of that. And I think it's important not to block the lake or any of these views, and of course to incorporate, you know, the shadow play. And so I just thought, yes, it's great that, you know, we're looking at the possibility of, you know, possibly two positions for it, so that the wall doesn't become the big dominant longest piece of the whole entire garden. That's it.
You had a question for Carol. Is she going to answer that?
Well, I mean, my question, my comment was about the overall, you know, feeling of it, and I was concerned about is whether or not it is appropriate to have such a large wall. Does that become too heavy and dominant? And, you know, the considerations with regard to the overall space and the overall feeling and the overall feng shui of the garden. Not just the feng shui for any one group, but the overall feng shui for the whole entire garden and for all groups. And so I was wondering what the possibilities are for the shape of the wall. So maybe it's not feeling so heavy, and what the implications are of having more than one wall, but smaller. So I guess that's kind of a question for Carol, but I don't know if it's fair to even ask that of you.
Sorry, Carol, do you have a response?
I mean, very briefly, I mean, ideally, I would want there to be 4 walls, right? I would want there to be a fully enclosed space, right? That's where that would be, you know, that's different. And I don't know that that's a possibility here. So, so for me, the second best would be to at least have that illusion of it being enclosed, maybe with plants or you know, in some way. What I would absolutely not want to see is just the gate sort of hanging in space, you know, with no wall. That would be, there's no point to the gate, right? If it's not actually separating and creating a different space, then it loses all of its purpose. And then does that answer the question? I think I got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Thank you. Bill Zychek?
Yeah, so one thought that I had was it would be good to keep the informational aspect of the garden separate from the donor wall. That this donor wall doesn't have to go on and on. A kiosk or something like that, or maybe even the donor stanchion that's up there right now would be something where you can flexibly change out panels depending on the information you want to show. And then hopefully we can use QR codes to make it more accessible to people as they walk through the garden. The whole discussion about the moon gate and connected wall as a separation into another space, I think what really grabbed me about the suggestion from Jennifer a couple of years back when this first came out was we might never get to phase 3, and this may be as close as we ever get to putting in a moon gate. And the reality is what Carol's talking about is fairly well reflected in the 3rd phase of the project, which more closely resembles a literati garden where you actually have enclosed courtyards, and the moon gates seem more appropriate. And so maybe we should let go of it. Maybe Ying is right. I'm just questioning whether this is the best thing to do with this phase at this point.
Thanks, Bill. Regina, do you have a comment? I think you're on mute. Regina, there you go. Hit it one more time.
One more time.
There you go.
Okay, so I think the donor wall, it sounds like you want it to be blended into the garden, and it wouldn't, like the concept of A and B with the breakup in the wall doesn't make it to be such a monumental wall, but it's more an on and off thing. Yeah, you see the concept A there with the breakup, and I think it's number B too, with the gate in it. So I think this could work. And then when you have plants and shrubbery and whatever else you want to plant, it could be a nice entry to the park.
Thank you, Regina. Linda, do you have another comment?
No, I'm done.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that people understand that we've been calling this the Moon Gate entrance, but it would not actually be an entrance into the park along that main pathway in front of the pavilion. It's set off at an angle so that it's facing Picnic Island. So it really is an entry into another space, another courtyard that would be created by the front yard and the landscaping down to the Moon Bridge. And I really like the idea of having this separate little courtyard area at that along the water's edge there. And so now that I understand where this donor, I've never really understood where the donor wall was going to be situated. Now that I understand it, I think that it's a great location to create another space that could be very meaningful, and that it's not seen as an east entrance to the garden. And
So
I do
here's-
like the idea too of separating out the donors and the information about the gardens, put that somewhere else, and keep this more of a classical, classic moon gate entrance into a courtyard.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, just to reiterate, this is the main path that goes in front of the pavilion, and the moon gate is further south. So what Linda is saying is this is creating a space at the corner of both of these paths where they meet at the intersection. And so it is not like the Western Arch that you're actually walking through something.
I'm actually saying it's creating a space on the other side of that, between the entrance, between the moon gate and the water's edge. It creates a beautiful space there that could be landscaped. I think there are landscape plans for it. And that would be a more intimate space there then for contemplation and etc.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Linda.
So Brett, I don't know if you're looking at the chat too. Excuse me, sorry. Kelly had a comment just that she has some ideas to incorporate Hmong patterns and making the donor wall more fluid and less obstructive to the view. I don't know if, Kelly, I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore, or you just wanted to include that as a comment and talk later with designers.
Yeah, I mean, I can go into more depth later with designers, but I do have some ideas. But just knowing more about the function and the reason for the donor wall and how it's displayed, so it can come later. But I just have ideas.
Thanks, Kelly. I think that's important to bring up, though, is trying to incorporate Hmong symbols or features into the donor wall too. If that's what you're suggesting, right? Okay, Bill Zychek.
Yeah, so just riffing on what Linda just said, I'm going to go completely 180 degrees and suggest that the Moongate wall not be a donor wall, that it actually be a wall separating the outside walkways and the busyness along the lake from the garden within. And that maybe this wall and Moongate actually are more appropriately part of the extension of the garden off the pavilion. I'm just anyway, I like Ying's idea of the donor wall, and I'm not sure this is best suited as a donor wall. I'm just thinking of what its best purpose is, and it's separating the garden from the busyness of the lake. And
I think you're saying what I said. If that's not what I came across as, that's what.
Yeah, no, I did. I'm riffing off what you said. I'm going 180 degrees. Instead of getting rid of it, let's use it for a different purpose, essentially.
No, I want to keep it too.
You're going 180 degrees from where you were before. Is that right, Bill?
Well, I mean, I said let's get rid of it.
Right. Yeah.
Because we'll have it in phase 3. But now I'm thinking, well, it really does provide a containment or entrance to the garden within that you aren't going to perceive unless you go through the Moongate, which is would be pretty remarkable, I think.
Councilmember Tao has added a comment or question asking the donor wall that size makes it seem like we are not humble.
We can make it smaller.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Tao. I think it's hard when you're designing for that Moongate where you don't want to have it floating like Carol is saying. So it seems like it's got to have that size in order to create the space that Bill you're talking about or Linda's talking about. So I think there's two sides to it. It's either it needs to be a larger wall, or it's not incorporated into this phase and it's a phase 3 element.
Or you achieve the effect with vegetation.
Correct, yeah. That could be a possibility. You might lose some of that view too, but you're right. All right, if there, oh, Brian, oh, maybe you took that down.
I took it down by accident.
Oh,
But Brian has his
hey,
hand.
Brian,
back
do you
up.
have a comment?
I just have a question about the wall. I agree with others' comments. I like I like the idea of the wall and moving the donor names to another location just to support that idea. And I have a question about the wall itself. I appreciate the, concerns about the length or the sort of, I don't know, the impact of the wall perhaps. And I'm wondering, but I do understand the why the wall is important also. And I just wonder is there any place for, maybe this is for Carol or Brett or anyone, for an ornamental, a few ornamental windows in the longer wall? Would that be an appropriate in this type of a wall or not? Those are things that I appreciate in gardens of this type. Just a question, a few of those.
Thanks, Brian. Carol, I think you got your hand raised. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, and that was something I was thinking about too, and that often those windows have designs in them, right? And some of those designs, I mean, that might be a place where we could put, it's not, normally among design, but it could be, right? Because they're rectangular, oftentimes rectangular. So just a thought, but I do love the idea of having, the idea is to have those escape windows where they're teasers, right? Teaser views as people are walking by, they sort of look in, and at the same time they would look out and it would frame the lake or it would frame a rock or, there'd be something to see. And I just also wanted to remind people that I think in the folder, the first meeting we had, I did a short presentation about Chinese gardens, and there are images of some of these things in that presentation. If you
Yeah, thanks, Carol. That presentation is also on the website too. So if anyone wants to go back, but it's similar to the Moongate where it's framing objects like rocks of the lake, like she's saying. Bill Zychak?
Yeah, just real quick, those are called leaky windows because the wind blows through them. There's no glass. And the patterns, you really need to see what they look like to appreciate them. It add a lot of interest and beauty to the wall.
Thank you. Commissioner Kang?
Just to add my 2 cents, I actually like the concept of outdoor space in the wall, creating an outdoor space for, if it's to separate the intimate, quiet time away from the crowd or away from the broader park. I'm in favor of it, and so I guess my only question would be like, would there be, I like concept B, so a little bit more transparency, so that you can still get the breath of the beautiful nature and then at the same time have a sense of space. Just my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments? It looks like Romy, I think you're responding to the patterns surrounding the windows. If not, we can move to the Moon Bridge. I think we've got a lot of great information. It sounds like transparency is one thing we want to see, but also creating that space. So maybe there's opportunities to use vegetation. But I also heard that the donor wall should be separated from that. So maybe it is over by the temporary placement, which was the suggestion by Ying. And then we don't necessarily need to incorporate all of the educational information along that wall. Is there anything I missed? If not, please let me know if you have any other comments. I can go to the images of the Moon Bridge. I think we need to really think about the function of it, how do we want to be accessible? Do we want this to blend into the environment? How tall do we want it? Those type of things. What are the symbols? How should it relate to the landscape?
And Brett, maybe I could give the historical perspective on the master plan upper left-hand moon bridge. That's the original design.
Yes, that would be great.
Well, that is
Please.
the only design. The other ones, I know Brett has pulled from other places, but they are not in any design that Jennifer has given us. On the top left, the thinking here was there is a view of this bridge where you can see the meditation sculpture if you are at the correct angle through the circle of the bridge. And so the intent was to have that frame meditation, so you could bring meditation into the garden.
So this is where she's talking about the China Garden. Here's the bridge. There's a visual connection all the way down to the meditation sculpture at the south end. Okay, Linda, is there anything else?
And the second point is that it is a moon bridge. That means the circle opening, when the moon flows through it, it will form a perfect circle on the water. So when you start changing the angle of that circle, you get ovals in the water, not circles. So I just want to point that out. And Carol may have something else to say on that score too.
You got it, Linda. That's exactly it. The moon is that's the key piece. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have a comment about accessibility? You know, I think many times when we're designing landscapes with the city, we are thinking about people that are 8 to 80 years old. So we're trying to make our parks equitable, accessible to all people. So one thing, I guess the first thing I think about when I look at this, the bridge with steps, is we're excluding people that may not be able to travel or traverse stairs as easily as others. And one thing I also want to point out, speaking for our parks operations, we generally do not plow interior park sidewalks. I mean, this would be included. So we do plow this walk, the main path that goes under the western gateway in front of the pavilion, and then we plow these two, or at least one of the paths around the lake. Scenarios like this ADA walkway down to the bridge, or if there's ever a future sidewalk that's around the picnic pavilion, these generally do not get plowed in the winter. So I think that's one thing we also should be thinking about. Linda, do you still have your hand up? Or I think, Regina, you have a comment. It looks like you are on mute. I don't think I can unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so I simply want to say that I would prefer that there would not be steps, because that makes it inaccessible for many people. Inaccessible.
Thank you.
Brett, Jack asked if it's even legal to to create a new bridge in a public facility that's not accessible. And I think the answer is that it is fine to do that as long as there is an alternative way to access, like the island.
Correct, yes.
So.
Building code, similar to the pavilion, you need several ways to get in and out of pavilion, other buildings. There are 2 other access points that are ADA accessible on the south end of the island. So if somebody was at the north end and wanted to get across and could not cross over the moon bridge, they would probably be walking a quarter of a mile to get around if they wanted to go on the other side. So yes, there is, I think there is a precedent where we could put stairs on the bridge and still provide access to the pavilion or to the island.
I think federal funding is another limitation, which we are not dealing with in this project, right, Brett?
Yes, correct. Federal funding would require ADA accessibility. We are using or requesting state bonding and legacy.
Well, I just want to add on. Hey. What
Yeah,
I'm saying? Yeah. So it's not about accessibility. You know, I'm an older person. I walk that park a lot, and it just is cumbersome. Let's put it that way. And so it detracts people from using this otherwise very beautiful bridge. And if it, and snow plowing too, you mentioned. So if it can be done without steps, I think it would be much better.
Thank you. Carol, you have your hand up.
I have a question for the real designers, right? Is there a way to keep that arch, keep the height, and keep the view, but then have, sort of in the ADA accessible one, it's a more gradual slope? Is there a way that, we flatten it out so that it'll be longer, right? The bridge will be longer and go out onto the land further to create that more gentle slope, but without losing the arch. Is there a way to do that? I know it'll lose some of the, I don't know, Chinese aesthetics in terms of the shape. But if we keep the arch, I think that's, maybe a compromise we could consider.
Yes, I think that's something they could look at. I think we are limited by the amount that we can go up at 5%. And another thing to keep into consideration, if we are looking at not having stairs, we would have to work with the DNR, work with the watershed district to understand how much fill that we could place on the island. Because if we are extending the bridge, we are extending fill that is in the floodplain. And so when you do that, you need to have a cut and balance many times. A lot of times that's in like riparian corridors, rivers, but I think that's part of the permitting and regulatory process that'll come into play. Romy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think it would be really useful if maybe they exist, but if they don't, if have Jennifer make some more detailed drawings that give us a little better perspective of the scale here. I mean, those people walking up that bridge, that doesn't actually look real to me. That looks way too steep somehow in perspective. And so, I mean, I think for us to evaluate this, it might be better to really understand just, what the actual scale is of that slope, and look at it from there. I do like the idea of elongating it if possible, to reduce the slope. But yeah, I do love the shape of that moon. So.
Yeah, thank you, Romy. It might be a bit out of scale. So if there's, I think it would be relating more to the one on the bottom left. I really don't, we could look at designs, but if there's anything that people see online, I think, or that you know of, feel free to send that to me as well. Any other comments? I know we're nearing the end of our time. We've got about 15 minutes. Doesn't mean we have to use it all. Ji-Jun, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm just thinking about how to elongate the bridge to reduce the slope. A option is to have multiple arcs instead of just one, so that will extend the elongate the bridge. But the thing is that the channel is very narrow, may not wide enough to hold three arches. But if just with one arch and elongate the bridge, it will look very heavy if we look from the side. That's just to give some comments on the idea to reduce the slope of the bridge.
Yeah, thanks. So if I understand it, you're saying elongating it, you can still get the arch, but you do like a series of three arches.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Linda, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that one of our co-founders, Joyce Shao, has had her eye on this bridge since the first time she saw the drawing and feels that this is really a critical element of the China Garden. And so I really hope that we can figure out a way to do this. It will be great to be able to connect that corner of Picnic Island to the pavilion area, and it would lead into this beautiful courtyard, small courtyard, intimate courtyard that we've been talking about. I think it will really be a beautiful element. My one real question is the engineering of it. And I know we can get all the pieces created in China and sent here, but what about the base, and is the land stable enough to support this? And that would be my big question of what process do we have to go through to even see if this is feasible in that area?
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I think that's, we could ask Jennifer or engineers. I think anything is possible. Right now, you can see that some of the images that we showed, there's puddles out there in the middle of Picnic Island. So it's going to be no small feat, and it's going to be a higher cost because you're building bridges and just trying to ship materials back and forth from a parking lot. Carolyn, do you have a comment? You have your hand up.
Yes. Oh, my comment was that I think that yeah, somebody said maybe we need a better image of that picture on the upper left, because looking at that, the height of that, it actually, it almost doesn't look like that would create a circle shadow in reflection. I mean, compared to the one on the bottom right, of course, it looks like an eye, right? Because it's very long and flat. But the one on the upper left looks like it's almost a parabola at this point. So, so I'm hoping that we'll get the proportion a bit better, and hopefully it won't be quite as high. And I agree with not having steps as well. That's it.
Thank you. Bill Zajac?
Yeah, just yeah, that CAD rendering I think is fairly distorted, particularly on the lake side. You'd be starting out at about 8 to 10 feet above the water's surface, and so not having steps on that side might be pretty realistic. Coming down the other way, you'd have to extend it a long ways to avoid steps. So I go back to the function of the bridge, and the function of the bridge is not to have access to channel. I call it, you can call it Picnic Island, but I will call it a Picnic Island. This is going to be a photo shot opportunity, basically. It'll be a place for people to make movies.
Yes.
I don't see it as the primary access to Picnic Island. It just doesn't feel that way to me. This is an aesthetic feature, and that's its function. It has no other real function in my mind.
Well, for people to walk on too.
Well, you'll walk across it for sure because you want to get your picture taken from it. But I think most people are going to enter Picnic Island on those other bridges. That's just my feeling about it.
I agree. It's going to be the new iconic symbol of St. Paul.
I'm sorry, I just looked at my notes and I realized I forgot to say something on the moon gate, and I assume that we are doing the ADA accessibility there so that it doesn't actually form a complete circle that you have to step over the threshold, but will actually be more of a horseshoe so that it meets the ground flat. Back to, this is on the moon gate. I was going through my notes and I realized I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the image that's shown here is
actually a step over.
You could go through it. So
Yeah.
you would not be stepping over the moon gate. It does end where you could walk through.
Okay.
Can you blow that up just a little bit? Just so you can see that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it does. It's more of a horseshoe. Yeah, so it comes down. Okay.
Very nice.
Just wanted to clarify that. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think accessibility is important to think about. All right, any other questions? I think we've got some direction. Brian, you have your hand up.
I apologize for, I, just a question, maybe this is taking us back to the very beginning, just to clarify. So I've heard what I've understood, and I'm first meeting, so forgive me. I've heard the discussion about the view going back to the wall and the moon gate looking toward the bridge. I've heard that discussion of that view a lot, as sort of opening up a new world, etc. When we think about coming from the bridge through the moon gate toward the lake, that's a concern or question of mine in terms of the appearance of that broad view, or is that, I would love to hear more about that in a future discussion, perhaps, as we close out, just what that impact is to have it open up perhaps to the lake or etc. Maybe that's what we were talking about before, into the walls, etc. But just a question on my mind is the opposite view, using that as an entrance.
So, Brian, you're not talking about the moon gate in this direction. You're talking about it the other way, opening up, looking at it towards the lake.
Towards the lake, yeah, exactly.
Yep, looking at it from this point out towards the lake.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Creating the sense of place, etc. Yeah.
Brett, I'm just looking back at some of the questions that you posed, excuse me, specifically regarding the moon bridge, and I don't know that I heard a lot of feedback on the colors and materials or symbolic features that could be incorporated. So I don't know if you want to continue that discussion at a different time or via email.
No, thank you, Ellie. Those are a few of the items that I was thinking about. Kali touched on a little bit on how we can incorporate some other Hmong features. I would assume that the Hmong features could be incorporated onto the moon bridge itself too. I'd like to hear thoughts about that, or are there any other specific Chinese symbols that should be incorporated? I think we've understood some of the Hmong symbols. Is there anything else that should be incorporated on the wall, or the donor wall, the moon gate, or the moon bridge? And if not, you can always email them to me.
I'd say traditionally there aren't a lot of symbols on the bridge. Maybe at the very bottom, like where the railing starts, sometimes you'll see like a little longevity symbol or, you know, something along those lines. And then sometimes at the very peak of the bridge on the ground, there'll be like a lotus, like a lotus flower symbol. And so I think those are maybe the only two places where I would see putting some kind of a symbol if we wanted to in there.
Okay, thank you. How about colors? There's some of these that we're looking at are very bright, but then again, a lot of people are using this as for a natural place. Phelan Park is very large. There's a lot of secluded areas where you can see nature. You're one within nature. Romy, you have a comment?
Yeah, it wasn't actually about that, Brett, but I just wanted to request that the next time we look at this, or maybe when you send out materials, we have a better look at what Jennifer actually had in mind for that area just south of the wall. Linda's referred a couple of times to a courtyard area. I think she maybe means a potential courtyard area. I don't think anything was landscaped specifically like that. I think there were rocks going down to the water, but it would be really good to zero in on what that space is, you know, how it was envisioned in Jennifer's plan, and maybe look at something like that, you know, in the future.
Yeah, and we do have Jennifer's plans of the landscaping that she had for behind there. Oh, you can, no, you can't really see it on this one, but Brett, I think you have those designs that I had sent to you that shows the landscaping.
Yeah, we do have a lot of we do have, not a lot, plans of what was happening, but I will say that I don't think there's no detail of what is happening at this landing. I think this is showing like a gathering space immediately for transition. But what I've seen is really there's not a lot behind this donor wall. It's creating a landscape similar to what is already in front of the pavilion. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a plaza designed at this point. There's stairs that are coming down from the moon gate that get you to a walkway along the channel. That's
Right.
what I've seen.
Right, there's no plaza sort of inside of the moon gate, between the moon gate and the channel. It's
Correct.
all landscaping with curving paths and places to stop and take in the view.
Yeah, so I think, Linda, when you said courtyard, maybe that wasn't quite the
Yeah,
right.
no, yeah, I meant like a landscaped area, not a
Yeah.
flat courtyard. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
We've only got a few minutes left. I don't know if we have time to jump into the landscape itself. What I'm planning to do, I know we've had a series of meetings. This is our second one to go into these details. And so the next meeting, I do want to jump into the discussion of this landscape where it does connect, or that sits behind the wall and in front of the pavilion. So this is one of the features that we'll talk about in the next meeting. I'd like to have that scheduled. I'd like to put that on the schedule for November 30th. So that's in 2 weeks from yesterday, where we can begin to talk about what is happening in that landscape, and then hopefully I'll have some more information about the Hmong Plaza where we can possibly advance that. Let's see. Is there another? There's a hand up, Ji Jun.
Yes. Sorry, maybe it's kind of late, but it just came up into my mind, and
yeah,
and I have a concern about the moon bridge, because people just said that since we all prefer with no stairs on the with the bridge, but I have a concern that because there's a lot of snowfall in Minnesota, and it can be icy, it can be very slippery on the bridge. So during the winter, that can be dangerous. So if we use stairs, that will be much safer. So that's my consideration. And if no stairs during the winter, it can be kind of dangerous. That's my concern with that option.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I will mention again is operations or Parks and Recreation would not be shoveling that stairs or those stairs if it is constructed that way. It would be volunteers. So many of you that are on this call. Romy, do you have your hand up, or was that from before? It might probably was from before. Okay, I think we have 2 minutes left. I think we have a lot of great information on how to move forward, especially with the donor wall. Similar to the Hmong Plaza, I want to reach back out to Jennifer. We can try to revise some of these drawings based upon your feedback, and maybe come back with some revised concepts that we can discuss in a little bit more detail, that then we can take to a public meeting and present to the public what we've been discussing and some of our ideas. And so I'd like to reschedule. I'd like to have the next meeting to talk about the landscape, and hopefully have some of those concepts November 30th. So it's 2 weeks from yesterday. I think it's a good time where then we can meet right before some of the December holidays, where we can work in the background. So that's my plan. I will reach out to Jennifer. I will also post this meeting with the notes and the recording to the website. You should find meeting number 2. That's already on the website. It is down here. This is the short version. So please take that down, or it is, if you search on the website, you should be able to find it at Phelan China Garden, City of St. Paul. Please reach out to others in the community. You are the representatives, so you should be that conduit to help make this process transparent. All this information will be on the website, so please direct people to it. And are there any more questions at the end?
No.
So Brett, are you okay with me posting that project website on our Facebook page?
Yes, please. Okay. And I think we'll try to get, we'll work with Ward 1, Ward 6 to try and get that posted on Facebook as well, or any other social media.
Yeah, there's some East Side Facebook pages we could put it on as well.
Yes. You're more than welcome to post those to let people know this is also an open meeting. So if there are others that want to join, not just the design advisory, others can join us as well. And I try to post these meetings with the link on the website so it's easily accessible where people can jump on if needed. So thank you again. We're nearing the end of this preliminary design where we're going to really